Picture this. You wake up tomorrow knowing no matter how hard you work today, you'll earn less than what you did yesterday. For nearly half of the poor world, that's not a thought experiment. That's Monday morning, the reality. When I was 13 years old in the year 2000, it took 388 billionaires to match the combined wealth of the poorest half of the world. Fast forward to 2025, that is today, just 26 individuals, people you could fit around a large dinner table, they own as much wealth as 3.8 billion people combined. I want you to think about that acceleration, that aggregation. In just over 2 decades, we've gone from needing nearly 400 of the world's richest people to match half of humanity's wealth to needing just 26. I'm not sharing this to depress you. I'm sharing it because I strongly believe the world is broken at the moment. And it's the backdrop for everything we'll talk about on this podcast. And here's what's happening in the world right now. We all know that. Working harder doesn't guarantee security anymore. Gone are the days. A full-time job doesn't guarantee shelter or food in some part of the world. And over 60% of the global workforce, they operate in the informal economy where there is no contract, no rights, no safety net whatsoever. So when your job can't protect you and the system refuses to see you, what is it that you do? You move. Not for adventure, not for opportunity, but for survival. And on top of that, when foreign powers, they bombard you and your community on the pretext of safety and security, claiming they're saving you from tyranny, you're left with even fewer choices. Today, people worldwide have been displaced by war, economic collapse, climate disasters. They abandon everything they know, including their identity, only to face new systems in a new world designed to keep them on the margins. We see this everywhere. We are really paying close attention. In your own country, you've got parents skipping meals so their children can eat. You have workers juggling multiple jobs, yet falling behind on the rent or mortgage. You have streets lined with shuttered businesses and abandoned dreams. The interesting part, none of this has happened by accident. None of this. These are the results of choices, policies enacted, voices silenced, and priorities set by people, and you know exactly whom, who never experienced these daily struggles. So I have to ask, whose world are we building and at whose expense? Right now, literally as I'm speaking, families across continents are packing their lives into bags. They're fleeing homes in Sudan, Gaza. You've got drought in Somalia, violence in Myanmar, not because they want adventure or opportunity, but because for them, staying has become more dangerous than going. And this is a first sign of collapse. When an entire population, they have to choose between dangers and unknown exile. Last year alone, fewer than 1% of the world's displaced people found formal resettlement. 1%. That means 99% of those people are still in limbo. They are unwanted, they are unseen, and they are unprotected. And here's the second sign. The gap between what leaders promise and what they deliver has become a chasm. I'm sure you remember COP26. It happens once in a while. World leaders, they make grand promises about climate finance. $100 billion to help communities adapt to climate change. But here's the thing. The exact same promise was first made in the year 2009. It's been 16 years and the money still hasn't materialized. Meanwhile, you could see the Amazon. It keeps shrinking. We've lost an area larger than France in the past decade. You've got climate disasters. They've tripled since the 1980s. And the communities who are actually bearing the brunt of it all, they remain unsupported, watching the waters rise and the rains fall while waiting for the help that was promised before some of them were even born. But here's what reveals the true nature of the moral collapse we are surrounded with at the moment. It's not about scarcity. It's not about that at all. It's about priorities. The world's government, they spend over $2 trillion annually on military expenditure. $2 trillion. Yet they can't find the political will to honor $100 billion climate promise, which was made 16 years ago. Think about that ratio. We spend 20 times more on weapons that we promised to spend on helping people survive climate change. And even that smaller promise remains largely unfulfilled. And here's another sign. When resources are consistently, they are flowing towards destruction, as we are seeing around us right now, killing people. It's all about destruction rather than preservation, towards power rather than people, and that aggregation of power, which is all about short-term interest of few people on this planet rather than the long-term survival of so many who are struggling. You see these politicians, they campaign on compassion and then govern through calculated indifference. They'll fast track tax breaks that save billionaires millions, but drag their feet on refugees' quotas that could save thousands of lives. They bail out failing banks in a matter of weeks, but spend decades studying what is poverty solutions and people sleeping rough in their own country. This isn't incompetence, it's a choice. Every budget in the Western world, as we see, is a moral document. Every policy reflects values. And that's what we are seeing in a system that has chosen profit margins over human margins, market stability over climate stability, and political convenience over human survival. These crises aren't separate. They aren't happening to different people in different places. They're all expressions of same fundamental breakdown. A global system that has lost the ability to prioritize human welfare over concentrated wealth and power. Now, for many, when migration becomes the only survival strategy, and when promises become a sort of a performance art, when resources flow towards destruction than protection, and when compassion becomes just another campaign slogan, as we see in and day out. These aren't signs of temporary difficulties. These are signs of systemic collapse. And every choice we make or refuse to make in the current times either accelerate that collapse or begins to reverse it. Now, while millions are struggling to survive, we are happily seeing the world racing towards another disruption, artificial intelligence. Governments and corporations are calling AI the next big thing. They promise efficiency, innovation, and unstoppable growth. But I've heard this song before. The last digital revolution, it promised progress too. And what did it deliver? Middle class jobs have vanished. Wages in large parts of the world have been frozen. Yes, profit has soared upwards. And between 1980 and 2016, the richest 1%, they captured twice as much global income growth as the bottom 50%. So here's the truth about AI. It's not a revolution. It's a rerun. Call me naive, But that's what it is. I've studied digital transformation for the last 10 years of my life. Yes, we haven't seen anything like this, like AI before. The scale, the speed, the potential. But here's what I know. It will accelerate the divide between rich and poor like nothing we've ever witnessed. And that's the bottom line. Whether we ignore that fact or accept it. The biggest gains won't trickle down because of AI efficiency. They will flow up to the usual suspect. The wealthiest corporations, they will patent the technology, as we are already seeing that competition, that race. And the most powerful government will write the rules. The best connected elites will dictate the terms. And those already on the society margins, think about them. They just won't be overlooked. They'll be systematically erased from the future being built around them. Now, AI gets marketed as inevitable. But unless we change its purpose, it won't heal our world. I'm wondering how many people are actually thinking about that. AI will amplify injustice faster, slicker, with better branding, as you may call it. And here's the kicker. The entire AI revolution is being funded and shaped by the same venture capital mindset that has got into this mess in the first place. The obsession with exponential growth, the market domination, winner takes all economics, as we are seeing around us, and as we've seen for the past few decades. We have created a culture where, and again, this is where we arrive, entrepreneurship means one thing: chase insane profit for elect few or very few. Build fast, scale faster, and then you move on to another thing. Repeat that cycle. Serial entrepreneurs, as we call them. Doesn't matter who gets displaced, which communities get disrupted, or what social fabric gets torn apart in the process. Or the heroes of this story are always the same: young, male, mostly white founders who disrupted the entire industry, usually by exploiting regulatory gaps and underpaying workers they've classified as contractors, as we call gig workers within the economy. Meanwhile, the political class, of course, they cheers them on. Because these startups, they make great campaign photo ops, dinners. Politicians, they love talking about innovation while systematically defunding the social programs that might actually help people build sustainable livelihood. But here's what gives me hope. It's not coming from policy papers or investor briefings. It's coming from people, real people building real things for real reasons. And I'm talking about entrepreneurs and the discipline of entrepreneurship as such. These entrepreneurs which I'm talking about, they aren't building to scale. They are building to survive, first of all. They are building to connect, to care, to hold their communities together when everything else is falling apart around them. And that's where entrepreneurship matters the most. And that's my hope, the discipline of entrepreneurship. It's not about chasing for $1 billion valuation, but how entrepreneurship transforms lives, both of those who build and those who benefit out of that holistically. Because let's be honest about what we're calling entrepreneurship these days. This growth at all cost mentality, this isn't entrepreneurship. I call that extraction. It's a pyramid scheme dressed up in startup language, where a few people at the top get obscenely wealthy while everyone else pays the price. The workers, like I said, were classified as contractors to avoid benefits. The community is disrupted by the term innovation, and the planet is strip mined for rare earth material to fuel the next tech boom, all sacrificed on the altar of exponential growth. So, real entrepreneurship, It doesn't require destroying what came before. It doesn't demand people choose between paying rent and eating. It doesn't celebrate laying off thousands of workers in the name of operational efficiency. So, real entrepreneurs, according to me, they ask, what if we built businesses that made life better, not just bank accounts bigger? This isn't a utopian dreaming. It's already happening right now. We have people in shared kitchen and community gardens, in maker spaces and mutual aid networks, in cooperatives that prioritize stability over scalability. These people aren't visible to us. This kind of entrepreneurship is quiet. These questions which I'm asking isn't something I'm just dreaming. It's already happening, and it has been happening for a very long time, all around our communities. These questions have been answered and been worked upon every day. You've got to look at what happened during COVID-19. It's just that these solutions don't get the exposure or coverage in the classroom or social media that they deserve. And this kind of entrepreneurship is quiet, is patient, and is rooted in care. It doesn't get TED Talks or magazine covers often, but it holds families together. It feeds communities. It repairs the social fabric that extractive capitalism keeps tearing apart. And it's precisely this version of entrepreneurship that gives me hope, not just as a resistance to what's broken, but as a proof to what's possible when we choose people over profit. And let me tell you this, I didn't grow up dreaming to become a podcaster. I'm still learning the trade of it. In fact, this is the first episode. But I've spent years teaching, researching when it comes to entrepreneurship. And the more I did, the clearer it became to me that the stories we have got used to celebrate, likes of Musk's and Bezos, the genius founder, chasing those valuations, they look nothing like the world most of us actually inhabit. The stories I found as a researcher, as an educator, and yes, as a migrant myself, they are very, very different. And they're rooted in survival rather than razzmatazz and spectacle. And which is why that's the rationale for me creating this podcast. I'm tired of glorifying the same old stories, same old narratives in my MBA classrooms and scholarly conference talks, which I go to. I want to explore entrepreneurship differently, not as a race of profit, but as a pathway to dignity and hope. I strongly believe that social entrepreneurship shouldn't be a footnote in business school curriculum. It should be central, not just one session in a 12-week module, especially in a world which is obsessed with wealth accumulation, which is all self-interest disguised as innovation for a few people. And this podcast is my way of pushing back, of shifting that narrative towards something real and purposeful, something more human. And at the heart of this podcast is about people. It's about people, purpose, and passion. It's not about profit margins. You won't hear that here. And over the coming episode, I'll be talking to three different types of guests who understand this vision along with me. First, you've got these entrepreneurs who've chosen to prioritize people and purpose over profit. These are individuals who've been building businesses to heal rather than extract, that creates dignity rather than dependency. As we see all the tech billionaires who've done that, we're dependent on the product and services which they've come out with. Second, you've got the scholars and researchers. This is the second group of people I'll be discussing or talking to. Scholars and researchers who are decoding this kind of entrepreneurship, they're trying to understand how it works, why it matters, and what we can learn from it. And the third group of individuals, what we refer to them as enablers. These are institutions, individuals, and organizations in host communities in and around us who support and nurture this approach to enterprise and business. These are individuals who are creating that infrastructure which the government should have done for entrepreneurship that actually serves humanity. And each of these group of individuals, they bring different lens to the same fundamental question which I'm asking through this podcast. How do we build an economy that works for everyone, not just the few? So I'm calling out all of you who've ever rolled your eyes at another disruption talk. If you've built something real from nothing, however big or small, you belong on this podcast. And if you've ever started something in a new country where your degrees, they haven't counted, or you've tried to make it work, your accent gets questioned, and more importantly, the system wasn't built for someone like you, this podcast is for you. And if you're tired of business stories that only celebrate billion-dollar exits or hockey stick growth charts, you're not alone. So if you believe business should heal communities, not extract from them, create dignity, not dependency, and finally build bridges, not walls, this podcast is for you. Now, this isn't about consolation prizes. This is about proving that our way of building isn't just valid, it's vital and important in the current times. And these are the real revolution stories we want to talk about on this podcast. So if any of this resonates with you, if you've ever felt that flutter of recognition, that quiet yes, finally, you're talking about it, then I need you to do something. Don't just listen and scroll away. Don't let this be another piece of content you consume and forget. Please subscribe to this podcast, but more than that, share it. Share it with people around you. Share it with the friend who keeps saying, there are better ways to do business. Please pass it along to anyone who's building something meaningful in a very difficult circumstances. Anyone who believes that work should create dignity, not just wealth. Anyone who's exhausted by the same old startup fairy tales. So let's shift this conversation together. Let's make space for this kind of entrepreneurship that actually holds the communities together instead of tearing them apart. The stories we don't reflect, it just doesn't reflect the world. They shape it. And for too long, we've been telling the wrong stories. Stories that basically worship extraction over creation, competition over collaboration, and profit over people. So I'm Dr. Tabish Zaman, and this is Builders of the Broken Bazaar podcast. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time in the space where the real change happens with another episode. Thank you so much for your time.